not overly aggressive, but they just hold me snugly in place, filming around Valentine's Day. I love a good hug, and the seats are giving them to me. Hey crew, I've got the key to my 23 Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170. After half a year of waiting, my car is here. I am so over the moon. I'm really, look at this thing. Anyway, we're gonna take it for a first drive today, but before that, let me share a quick story with you. When my car first arrived at the dealership, they called me, said your car is here. I about lost it, I was so pumped. They then asked, do you want us to clean your car for you? Because it's really dirty from transit. And I said no, for two reasons. One, I wanted the experience of unwrapping my own steering wheel and cutting the plastic off my seats. And two, I didn't want any accidental damage to this stunning Plum Crazy Purple paint job. So they gave the car to me, and it was, of course, disgusting. And it was okay, because I knew my next visit would be to a shop to take care of the ceramic coating of the car, make that Plum Crazy Purple paint job pop. There's a lot of P's right there. And then to take care of the fishbowl experience with the windows, and then to PPF protect the front end. So I did a lot of research trying to find the best shop for it, and ultimately I settled on OC Tint Solutions, and I had an at-length conversation with the owner, Jason, about my car, eventually walking away feeling like Jason was gonna do a good job. Guys, Jason didn't do a good job, he did a phenomenal job. Not only did the ceramic coating come out really nice, which is, I mean, not terribly difficult, it's labor intensive, but not super difficult. The tint job of this ceramic tint is so good. It's just flawless. And I settled on a 40% transparency for the windows there and 70% for the front windshield. I really like how it came out. And then he did the PPF. And my only other experience with PPF was on the Blackwing, which was, it was an okay job, but you could see the seams and some bubbles of air that came out even after the follow-up. But Jason's job is so good, he hit his work so well that unless you're right in it, do you actually see any seams of the PPF. In fact, the only visual seam from a distance away from the car is where his film met with the film of the PPF that came from the factory on this matte black hood, which is of course impossible to hide. They're two films coming together. Otherwise, the PPF seams are flawless. They are disguised perfectly. And so I'm not only thrilled with the work, but it's easy for me to recommend them. If you live in the SoCal area and you need similar work done to your car, go visit OC Tint Solutions. And if you mention that MilesPerHr referred you, you'll also get a 10% discount. Beyond that, they didn't pay me for this video. They just gave me a little discount on the work because they knew I'd take this car to car shows, and invariably the conversation about why it looks so good would come up. This is just me being very satisfied and wanting you guys who I care about, my audience, to have similar satisfaction with your paint protection and your ceramic coating and your tint. Okay, getting back to the car. Obviously, I went with Plum Crazy Purple. Was that an easy decision for me? No, I kind of flip-flopped a bunch of different times, but ultimately settled on wanting a color that was going to pop and excite me in a similar way that the electric blue of my CT5e Blackwing does. And oh boy, does this color excite me. The metallic flake is stunning, and it goes from a really dark hue in shadow to when the sun hits it, this purple just coming out at you. I love it. And I went with the matte black of the hood, or rather just the intake portion. If it was the 2018 Demon, it would be the entire hood, and I think that looks actually a little better, but I understand Dodge wanted some differentiation, and it does say alcohol injected right there. Very, very cool. I didn't go with matte black for the roof or for the rear deck lid because I love this color so much and I wanted a nice contrast there. I didn't want it to be too much matte black, and you still get the matte black for the rear deck lid, which is kind of extended here for better downforce at the drag strip. And then the wheels. And this one I still go back and forth on. Did I make the right decision? Did I not? I didn't go with the $12,000 carbon fiber wheels for two reasons. $12,000, but also I didn't want any production delays beyond the delays that were already happening to my Demon 170. I didn't want to be sitting there for an extra 5 or 6 months, which is happening to some people, waiting just because I went with carbon fiber. Instead of saving the extra 32 pounds and having that kind of carbon fiber weave look, which would be cool, I just went with the dark aluminum alloys. And these are still very lightweight. They're still in that dark gray finish and still are offset nicely by the yellow script on the brake calipers. It says SRT right there. I do need to pull off that sticker. Unless you're close up, unless you're taking it to the drag strip all the time, you're not gonna really notice the difference. What else? I mean, the tires, right? That was the first thing at the dealership. I just was sort of tractor beamed to these tires, these Mickey Thompson drag tires, 315 section at the rear, 245 at the front, and they just look proper race car with these fender flares just at the back, the narrow body at the front, and the fact that there are no grooves for water runoff. It's just, how are these street legal? I don't know. I think I have to make a video of driving the Demon 170 in the rain as safely as possible, if that's even possible. Oh, one other thing. I did darken the rear reflectors there and then on the side because I didn't want that kind of jutting out at you. I just wanted the purple and the matte black to be the primary colors of the exterior. Oh my gosh. This car is an animal. It's so good. Okay, let's look at the interior. Opening up and looking inside. Now, when speccing the Demon 170, there aren't a whole lot of options to choose from. It's like paint color, whether you want the carbon fiber wheels, and then interior choices. The biggest decision being, how many seats do you want? Do you just want the driver's seat? Do you want the front passenger seat as well? Do you want the rear seats too? And me thinking, well, gee, I'd kind of like company. It was easy for me to add on all the seats. The next decision was whether I wanted the standard fabric seats or whether I wanted something a little nicer like Laguna Leather with Alcantara inserts and heating and ventilation and Alcantara for the headliner and a Harman Kardon sound system and carbon fiber details. I wanted all those things, and there was a really nice one grouped package with all that in it, and I said, let's go for it. The next decision was color. Do you want black or do you want demonic red? And maybe if I had chosen, one of the other thoughts I had was going with the pitch black for the exterior. If I chose that, I definitely want the seats in demonic red. But going with the plum crazy color and the red, for me, was too much. So instead, I just went with demonic red seatbelts. So we got a little splash of color, not all black, not all boring, but it's much more subtle than purple on red. That's how I went about it. Now, to get to the back seats, I actually want to go to the passenger side because the driver's side, pulling that handle doesn't slide the seat forward. I actually need to be over here so I can pull the handle and then have it slide forward. And that's a pretty good access point to the rear seats. And now that I'm here, pull the seat back and slide it. And I still have knee room here. The headroom situation isn't terrible. It's not great though. My head's on the roof and I can't make it back to that headrest. This is still better than something like a Mustang or a Camaro. It feels comparably spacious. And I do have air vents, no USB ports or anything like that. There is an armrest that comes down with some cup holders. Those are your accommodations. I wish there were USB ports. That's about it. Not gonna complain about anything else. And getting out is equally easy. Before I hop in the driver's seat, 2 initial complaints. Here's number 1. I gotta love that sound. Hard, scratchy plastics on a $100,000 car. And number 2, the doors. Unless you actually slam them shut, they're just gonna keep doing this. You gotta give it the business to get it to seriously close. Now when you do, it's a solid thud, but it's especially irritating when you're first just hopping inside and you go to close the door and yeah, you didn't actually get it. The icon is still there. You have to really get the full seal so that when you start the car and go into drive, it doesn't kick you right back into park. Now here in the driver's seat, suede wrapping for the steering wheel. Very cool. Half paddles on the back of the wheel. Super not cool. Make those full paddles, please. Come on. Plastic for the airbag cover. Whatever. Digital TFT display and red-backed analog gauges. I'm not going to complain about that. I like the classic gauges on this classic yet 1,000 horsepower muscle car. Carbon fiber around the gauge cluster, around the infotainment, and here on the console. Super cool. The gear selector, same as it always has been, but feels really nice in the hands. I like the physical inputs for volume, tuning, and climate. Easy to use, not distracting. The infotainment is just fine, right? It's not contemporary. It works. You can get to all the stuff you care about, including all your drive configurations and the Trans Brake 2 system. It just works. And it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but they're not wireless. The contrast stitching on this injection molded dashboard does make it look more upscale. I love the Demon plaque on the passenger side with my VIN number, which is 94 out of the 3,300 being built. I was stoked to get one in the first 100. And there's a custom plaque coming. It's going to say 4 miles per hour, because of course it has to. Under this Alcantara headliner, I do have headroom at 6 feet tall. That gets the thumbs up from me. And here in the console, got leather topping that with a good amount of storage with 2 USB-A ports, an aux jack, and a DC outlet. Aux jack, still got that going. Wow, DC outlet on the passenger side here. And otherwise, this cabin is just very standard Challenger, like the nicest version of a Challenger, but apart from the Demon imprints on the seat back and that plaque, not a whole lot to differentiate it. That bums me out a little bit, but I know this vehicle is about the performance. So let's go take it for that first drive. All right, let's fire it up. Oh, the Demon on the gauge and the complete lack of subtlety to the startup from that supercharged Hemi V8. That is how the Demon 170 welcomes you to the party. And I'll say hello, cabin crew. Thank you for joining me for this first drive in my Dodge Challenger SRT Demon 170. Before I go anywhere, let me just show you the drive settings here. So instead of the normal auto, custom, sport, track that you get in Hellcats, you just get drag, custom, and auto. I'll first show you custom, where you can customize appropriately how you want the transmission to shift, how you want, if you want the paddle shifters engaged, the level of traction intervention, the firmness of the suspension, and the heft of the steering. I'm just leaving everything in street for right now, as I then move to auto, where you still have both a valet mode and an eco drive mode. I don't know offhand exactly what it limits the power to. Maybe it's 500 horsepower like the regular Hellcats, but eco's still there to dull the throttle response. And then there's drag mode. And here is where you access the new Trans Brake 2.0 system, where you can go into drag setup. Actually, sorry, it's over here, where you go into drag options, and then you hit Trans Brake, and here you can go in and customize precisely where and when and how much torque you want delivered for your drag strip launch. So you can kind of limit the torque at the start, and then as you make your way down the drag strip, as can sometimes happen, you don't want to lose the back end, so you can have it pull torque at certain intervals so that doesn't happen and you stay as safe as possible. But this is super, super cool. And then here, when I go back to the other options, under power, it tells you the ECU system in the Demon 170 can detect how much ethanol is in the tank. And if you've got more than 65% of the tank with E85, it'll give you the full 1,025 horsepower. If you don't, then it'll give you some variation between 900 and the 1,025. Because I'm just in the break-in period, I've got 135 miles from the odometer. Okay, so this is not the very first drive of this car. I drove it home from the dealership and then I took it to a car show, but this is still very fresh impressions. But fully within the first 500 miles, I'm not gonna go crazy with this at all. So don't need the 1,025 horsepower. I've just got it on 91 octane fuel. So 900 horsepower is what we're working with here. Let's just start in auto mode. And now I'll go into reverse, and I need to disengage the push brake. Still have a push brake in a Challenger. The backup camera is just as terrible as it always is, but it fills the screen, and you do have trajectory lines. I wish I had all the different high resolution camera angles like my Blackwing, and I wish I had the digital rearview mirror, but it's what we've got. Down into drive. I will start, as I always do, with a test of the turning circle. So here, lined up straight, cranking the wheel. And honestly finding a pretty fantastic turning radius for a massive muscle car. For a boat like this, it turns around pretty darn well. And now for that turn signal sound, which is loud. That is a loud indicator noise. And I wish it wasn't. And now for the world famous horn test. A quality horn sound. Like authoritative, not irritating in tone. I'm good with that. You know what I'm also good with? The Powertrain in the Demon 170. Dodge threw out just about every component from the Hellcat's 6.2 liter supercharged V8. They kept it just one critical piece, and that is the camshaft. But this has reinforced cylinders, it has a beefier rear axle, a stronger drive shaft, it has larger throttle bodies, and it's got a bigger supercharger, a 3-liter supercharger compared to the 2.7-liter unit in the Hellcat Redeye. And so boost has been dialed up to 21.5 psi compared to 15.3 in the Hellcat Redeye. But especially when driven in the Eco Drive mode, which is dulling that throttle response, but not dulling the supercharger whine, which is more pronounced in this than any other Hellcat I've ever driven. The Demon 170 is actually decently easy to drive. What you can never get away from, apart from that supercharger whine, even in Eco, is this feeling of pent-up power at the disposal of your right foot. So you still have to be careful with it, but it also just fills you with this, I don't know, giddy feeling like you're just holding on to a monster that you could unleash at any point in time, but one that I won't be unleashing right now in the first 500 break-in miles. I am going to take it out of Eco Drive mode just to kind of compare. Now I've got the 900 horsepower, and now I'm having to apply a little extra sensitivity to my throttle input. But I mean, the way this car can so effortlessly pick up speed as I just watch the numbers on the digital tach just climb. It's crazy. I just love the noise of that supercharger whine. It's something that I don't get in my Blackwing, and it's so prevalent here in the 170. And it's everywhere. You don't have to be punching it. You don't have to have the Hemi V8 take over. You just enjoy the supercharger everywhere. You know what I'm also enjoying is this ride quality. The way they tuned the suspension for the Demon 170, they gave it softer springs and shocks. So while you still have the adaptive dampers like the regular Hellcat, you just have this softer, cushier ride so that you have more traction off the line in a drag scenario. And added to that, you get the thickness of the sidewalls of these tires that really just create this compliance that I've never felt in a Hellcat. It always felt a little kind of firm and a little choppy on the road. This just has this composure over changes in the road while insulating me from the big impacts. This is the most cruiser-worthy Challenger I've ever driven. I've driven every version of it. This is the best. And these seats are as good as they always are in Challenger Hellcats. The leather feels fantastic. The cushioning, the bolsters are not overly aggressive, but they just hold me snugly in place. And right around here that I'm filming around Valentine's Day, I love a good hug. And the seats are giving them to me. The only problem with the seats, I cannot lower them as much as I'd like. So I feel a little like I'm sitting on top of the vehicle. Certainly when I fully extend my torso here, I have to slouch a little bit, scoot my butt a bit forward to actually get the vantage point I'm looking for. I wish the seats adjusted more. And thankfully I do have 4-way lumbar, which really helps with the lower back support, especially when I have to scooch my butt forward. And as I start to pick up a little speed here, I want to listen for the cabin noise and vibration harshness. How loud is it in here? My gosh, the answer is not at all. There's a little brush of wind noise here at the window seam. Off throttle. the faintest hum from the tires. Here, even on a louder road surface, it's just not loud. That's a little louder. On the decel, the downshifts are always aggressive, and it sounds fantastic. The brake pedal is not, though. It's not too urgent when you get to the pedal. It just kind of eases you down. We'll see how they perform at higher speeds after the break-in miles, but for now, around town, they're great. My gosh. I love driving this. I love driving this at low speeds. In fact, the only thing that is probably going to stop me from putting on a ton of miles here is the fuel economy. It's horrendous. It's 13 mpg in the city, 17 on the highway, and 15 combined. If you're lucky. More realistically, I mean, even the drive from the dealership to the fuel station, I had like a quarter tank, and the guy was like, you should probably put some gas in like immediately. And I was like, it's got a quarter tank, it's fine. By the time I got to the fuel station, it was already at an eighth tank. It just guzzles gas, and that's 91. I do want to find out, just for content's sake, what it does to E85 fuel. That's going to be another video I'll make. But here, even before I begin to dabble in the 1,025 horsepower, the 945 pound-feet of torque, the 1.66 0 to 60 time in the perfect conditions, and the under 9-second quarter mile, again in the perfect conditions, before I even touch those things, I'm infatuated with driving this Demon 170. It's just pleasant. And that, when you look at it, is not the first word that comes to your mind. Terrifying. Brutal. Those are the descriptors that come to mind when you first see it, and probably the ones I will attribute to it after I've cracked the 500-mile break-in. But for now, with the 900 horsepower and 810 pound-feet of torque, still ridiculous numbers, this is just sensible? Can I even say that? But yeah, it is. For the Blackwing, a Cadillac, I expected to enjoy the low-speed cruising, the ride quality, the cabin insulation. Not for the craziest muscle car that's ever been built. Yet that's the reality here. I just wish it had a wireless charging pad. My smartphone didn't have to sit in the cup holder. What a lovely, completely unexpected takeaway from this first drive in my Challenger Demon 170. And don't worry, as soon as I do hit break-in miles, I've got a lot of other videos planned for this car, including some appearing on other big car channels, so you don't want to miss those. So make sure you like, comment, and share this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified, and I will see you again next time. Can't wait.